Quiet on set. Picture is up. All right, roll sound.
Rolling.
Roll cameras.
Cam's rolling.
And 3, 2.
Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome to Hank's Think Tank. It is Friday. Thank God it's been a long week. The heat is on, so be careful this weekend, guys. It's going to be 100 degrees or better. So if you're working outside, drink a lot, stay in the shade, and try not to get drunk or anything because that doesn't help you any. Okay, I've got Aaron Johnson in today. He's with Montgomery County Animal Services. And we've been working for quite a while to get Aaron in here. I'm excited. We're going to have a good talk. I'm going to learn a lot about what's going on there because I really don't know too much. I know that I've had a lot of animals around here, and we've even implemented the old community cat program, which I don't know if it's still in effect, but we'll find out in a minute. And guys, before we get started, I wanted to let you know again that we're in conjunction with Porter Fire Department. We're going to be hosting a hurricane preparedness class. Now, we just got into hurricane season, and so far things look okay, but you never know. And I know a lot of you guys think you got this thing wrapped up, and it's been years, and so you've learned what to do, but there's always new technology coming out, always new things coming out that can help you to prepare a little bit better. That's what this class is for. We're going to hold it on June the 28th at 6:30 p.m. at the Porter Fire Department on Loop 494. So give us a call here at Studio 13, catch with us on Facebook, and if you want to reserve a spot, reserve one. We've got about, I think, 10 or 12 spots left for the first class. So if you want to do it, jump aboard. We look forward to seeing you. I think it's going to be great. It's going to be educational and worthwhile. And as usual, we'll have some drinks and cookies and stuff like that there too. So bring the whole family. It's good for everybody to learn. Aaron, how's it going, man? Welcome aboard.
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
No problem. It was good getting you in finally, and I'm glad you missed that whole traffic thing you got involved in earlier.
Yeah, it's
so. You rolled up on a car fire.
I did. I was on the way here and at the stoplight, and there's a car fire. So
you never know. Montgomery County's growing.
You never know. But we got the fire department out there and PD out there to direct traffic, and we're getting the situation handled now. So.
There you go. Well, so we've experienced a whole lot of exponential growth in the past several years. How has that affected the animal services? Because I know that you guys, your facility's like locked in. You're landlocked.
Mm-hmm.
So have y'all grown any, or have you decided to put a second story on? What's the deal?
We haven't grown any. I've been there 5 years now, and we haven't grown at all.
Wow.
And obviously the growth is impacting us. As I always say, with more homes, there's more pets. And that's just a statistic across the nation. And so we are seeing that impact. And, the shelter hasn't grown even since before I came here. And it needs to grow. And we're at that point, I'm sure people have probably seen me and heard me at Commissioner's Court talking about a building, but, we're kind of at that point where we really need to have some growth in order to effectively deal with the animal issues that we have in our communities.
So y'all would have to move completely then, huh?
I would believe so. There are some plots of land around us, but I don't know if those people are willing to sell or if it's even possible or affordable or any of those things. But yeah, we would probably have to move to a different spot, or if they're willing to sell, there might be enough room. But
so presently, how many animals can you house there?
So there are, in our adoption rooms, there are 180 runs, and this is a number that has been kind of thrown around a little bit. People always say it's got to be more than that. It's got to be more than that, and it is a little bit. We have 60 other kennels in the back, and when I say that, when I talk about dog runs, the runs have a guillotine in the middle, and so by the standard of things of how a dog should be kept in there, it should be one, and it should be open, and you should be able to close it for cleaning. So you move them from one side to the other to clean.
Okay.
We have not been able to do that really ever since I've been there. And so that's not ideal. And so that would be half of that 180 number for dog runs. But
so you're keeping 2 in each run?
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's 1 on each side, and even to the point right now where we're getting to where they're paired up even on both sides. And we've done that in the past, even to where there's 2 on each side, but it's not a good idea, and it just isn't working for us anymore.
Right.
And one of the biggest reasons is because last year we had distemper kind of come through the shelter, and that's a disease that's spread basically through droplets, airborne, coughing, sneezing, that kind of stuff. And it can be fatal to dogs. It can be spread pretty quickly too, and so that's something that we have to be very conscious about and kind of plan for that and make sure that we aren't in an overcrowded situation, that we don't have that happen, because we don't want to have that happen again. Obviously, it's nothing that we want to go through again.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be really hard to manage.
It is, and it's one of those things that's not just us. They've been seeing it in shelters all across the South and even across the country, but particularly the South. The city of Dallas has been dealing with it right now. I know the SPCA in Dallas, they're dealing with it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the 2 shelters there, I know, have been dealing with it, and it's difficult when we're a government facility because we still have to deal with animals coming in for seizures, cruelty cases, bite cases, and then strays as well. So it's a tough challenge to manage that in a facility that doesn't have a lot of room, to move animals around, isolate, and put those animals coming in.
Now, as far as people that work there, has that grown at all, or are you still running on the same crew?
Still the same crew. We don't have any more staff than really when I started. We definitely need more staff. Those are kind of my 2 biggest points right now, is that the building needs to grow, and then our staff numbers have to grow, because we're going to end up housing more animals, and we're going to have the people to care for those animals. And there are standards out there that show what you should have, and it's typically 15 minutes per animal is what you need to plan for.
Okay.
And so that would put us way over what we have currently.
Right.
We have a small but mighty team. We have a great team. But we do have open positions too, and we can't seem to get those filled. That seems to be a constant problem since COVID. I mean, that's really kind of been the issue. But I don't think it's even just us or animal welfare. We've spoke to clinics and other businesses, and
it seems to be across the spectrum for some reason. It's almost like people don't want to work anymore.
I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what they're doing otherwise, but so that's been a challenge, and it even to the point of veterinarians. We've had a veterinarian position open, and we would like to get it filled, but it's finding that candidate and getting them hired. And when we have disease, such as distemper and parvo coming in, we need those veterinarians. And those veterinarians allow us to do more the free vaccine clinics and things like that we do in the community.
Right.
It allows us to do that, and if we don't have our full vet staff, it makes it very, very difficult to continue those or to do them as frequently as we'd like to.
Right. So have you noticed also that with the growth, you've also had a lot more adoptions, or have adoptions kind of stayed the same and just intakes grown?
So I say intakes grow, but there's kind of the caveat to that, and that's just that we've had kind of this appointment system, and with COVID and everything else, and then the distemper issues and having to manage our population more carefully. If we were to just kind of completely open everything and just anybody can drop anything off, there's absolutely no way we'd be able to handle what would come in.
Right.
So we haven't really seen that growth in adoptions. 2019 was a really good year for us. We did almost 8,000 adoptions, I believe it was.
That's pretty
we
good.
did a very good year.
That's great.
But since then, we haven't had that. And so that is obviously problematic, because we really need to be able to move animals through the shelter. That's what allows us to obviously continue to take in more. So fostering adoptions have kind of been down, and not, I keep saying this, but not just for us, but all across the country.
No, I didn't know there was fostering.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about fostering. How does that work?
Fostering is great, especially right now, puppy and kitten season, when they're not old enough to be spayed or neutered. So we can't legally adopt them unaltered. They have to go either with a contract that they're going to be altered or be altered when they leave.
Okay.
So for us, we alter them in-house, so it's not really an issue. But if they're not old enough, then we are able to put them out to foster. So basically, people can come and take, say a litter of kittens, and they can bottle. Sometimes it's bottle feeding. Sometimes it's just waiting for them to get older and to be old enough and of weight to have surgery, and then from there they can be adopted.
And they bring them back? Or? Okay.
Yeah, so they can.
That's cool.
Some people, it kind of depends on the foster.
Yeah.
Some will bring them back to the shelter upon surgery, and then that way they can get adopted. Some like to hang on to them, go to adoption events. They want to be involved in that process of finding a family for that pet, and we appreciate them helping us. It's something that gives us more space in the shelter, and it gives the families an opportunity to
I
kind of
had
help out.
no
some pets in our
idea there
community.
was a fostering program.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
cool.
Yeah. Our foster
So-
coordinator is great. She loves to get animals out to foster. And
Mhm.
so any new fosters, she'd be more than glad to help people. They can go on our website, it has information, or they can email her, foster.coordinator@mctx.org.
Okay.
Pretty simple. She'd get you all set, anybody who wants to foster all set up and get you supplies
pretty
and
cool.
everything else. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it helps us out a lot. And sometimes...
And is it cats and dogs,
Mhm.
or just
Yeah,
really?
cats
wow.
and dogs. Like I said, sometimes it's they're too young. Other times, if they go through some sort of procedure, if they're healing from some sort of illness, we have those cases as well. We do amputations and things like that for injured animals. I mean, that
Wow.
happens. We like to get them healed before we can send them on to a new home.
Yeah,
So
that's cool. All right, let's talk about the community cat program. So this thing bailed me out. Really helped a lot.
yeah,
At one point, and I'm not afraid to admit it, we had a lot of cats around here.
Sure.
And it started small. My dad had one or two when he was still alive. And he passed, and one of his wishes was that I'd take care of his stray cats.
Mhm.
So I kept buying food and feeding cats. Well, of course, more cats showed up.
Yep.
Then more cats showed up. Then they started having kids, and before you know it, I really had a problem.
yeah,
So I called you guys and was introduced to the community cat program, and man, it worked out great.
yeah.
And
It's an
so,
awesome
can you
program.
explain to people who don't know how that works?
Sure.
What to do and
Yeah.
how it works.
We also we do it in house as well. So some people will just turn them into us, and we'll end up TNRing them. So it's trap, neuter, and release. Some call it other things, SNR or CCP programs. They have different acronyms for them, but basically it's just bringing the pet in or using another facility. We also work with Texas Litter Control, so
Right.
people can go there and have it done without ever even coming to the shelter.
Okay.
And basically they take them in, they get surgery, they tip the ear on the cat so
That's
the
right.
cat is fixed,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
give it the rabies vaccinations and make sure that it's healthy enough to be in the community.
Mhm.
And you release it back out, and the colonies kind of form, and they self-manage very well, really.
Mhm.
And they're good at just living out their life, how cats would be cats out in the community.
Right.
And it works out well. It keeps the population from exploding on you, and it keeps cats out of the shelter too, unnecessarily, for no reason, really.
Yeah, we brought quite a few.
Yeah.
And it took a while, like I think 4 or 6 weeks before
Sure.
they showed back up.
Yeah,
But they just showed back up, and the other ear was clipped, and they were healthy
Yep.
and happy and lived their lives
Yeah.
out. I think that we're down to one now
Mhm.
out of all those. But I mean, it just really helped out a whole lot.
yeah.
Because it kept the population down around here.
It's a
And,
great program. I
yeah.
mean, shelters across the country, I mean, we've been doing that for a while now, and I don't know what we would have done really without those kinds of programs. I mean, it just made sense. It was one of those programs that once we started doing it, it was like, you can't stop this. This
Yeah.
is something we have to have.
Yeah,
and,
it's awesome.
yeah, it's been great.
Yeah,
It's
it's
been
really
great.
good. So appreciate that one.
Yeah.
Because that bailed me out. It was a couple of years ago, but yeah, it really helped out, and I'm down to
Good.
a way manageable level now.
Yeah, and the
uh,
way the colonies, there's a lot of studies and information out there. It's pretty interesting stuff on how cats really they do colonize, and
They do.
they have their own little groupie,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's what it is, and they just live out their life.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they're actually pretty fun to be around. Never met a cat that had the same personality as another cat.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
yeah, and
you know?
and some are. It's interesting too. Is some people think, oh, it's friendly. I can pick it up and do all this stuff. But there's some that you out there you can pet it and everything else, but don't try and pick it up,
That's
or
right.
don't try to do anything else.
Yeah.
But they're like, you can pet me, you can feed me, but that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
So it's interesting to watch their behavior too.
Yeah, and I've got one. He's a deaf guy. He's been deaf since birth. I don't know why, but he's lived so long. I thought, well, if any of these cats around here are going to get killed, it's going to be him because he won't hear something
Won't hear it coming.
sneaking
Poor
up
guy.
on him. But he's been around and
The longest.
outlived them all.
Which goes to prove that some people have that fear that I think something could happen to them, or they have this issue and it could hinder them, but they do fine.
Yeah,
They have
he seems
other
to have
instincts.
radar.
Yeah,
because like I can come up behind him and he'll turn around
Yep.
and look. I'm like,
their instincts, their
Yeah.
other instincts really kick in, and
Yeah, pretty
it
smart.
works out. Yeah.
yeah. So, and I don't want to just all of a sudden shift gears, but I got so many questions.
Yeah, no worries.
So I've always been not really concerned about rabies,
Mhm.
but is there a lot of that goes on in Montgomery County, or is it rare? Because it seems like it's rare. I never hear about it.
It depends on how you're looking for it. So we don't. I look at it this way. So when I was at the city of Houston, we used to test bats all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Just if anybody found one, even if there was no contact or anything else, if they just saw it, we would end up picking it up, testing it, and we would see a fair number of those test positive for rabies. And then there was a decision that we weren't going to test all of them, just only if they were in a house, or if there may have been contact, or if there was a situation that we should test it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so you kind of see the numbers kind of change. And so we're one of those groups that don't test everything, only if there's contact or some sort of exposure to a pet, things like that. So we don't really see a lot of it. I'm not going to say it's not out there, because it is. You'll see it typically, raccoons, skunks, foxes, things like that are the ones that you're going to see it in mostly, and bats, obviously. But we don't really see it in dogs, obviously, and that's, I think, mostly thanks to people vaccinating their pets. And
that's good.
Yeah. There's going to be cases. We've had a couple in Houston. A bat was found in a kid's room, and obviously he had exposure and got rabies. I mean, it's very rare.
Right.
I did see a stat the other day, though, that rabies was actually up this year across the country, which was interesting. Just with cases in humans, at least. So that was really interesting to see. But we just encourage people, if there is an exposure to a high rabies suspect animal, that they do let us know or call us, even with non-high suspect animals, to let us know, and we can kind of work with those people to make sure that if it needs to be tested or quarantined, that we do that to make sure that they stay safe.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Have y'all had any dogs or any animals that have tested positive for COVID?
We have not.
No?
And so in the very early on, there was a lot of discussions with some of the universities, the veterinary schools, and it was looking like cats were a potential for that, but they were finding out that they could get it, but the likeliness of them spreading it and stuff like that was very, very, very low. And so the likeliness of them being kind of a problem as far as that respect was low.
Yeah.
So we were kind of lucky in that aspect, that dogs and cats weren't really getting COVID, and that they weren't a factor into things, because that could have really made things very different.
Sure.
Having to worry if every animal coming in has COVID.
Yeah, that'd be terrible.
Yeah. So we were kind of lucky in that respect. I know some of the zoos and things like that were very careful with their large cats, and so that was kind of a concern for them. There were a few cases of that, but I don't think anything serious that I recall. They all seem to recover and everything like that.
That's good, because
Yeah.
COVID's already been a nightmare. Anyway.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is hop it over to the animals.
Yeah, we don't need any more issues with that.
Yeah, that'd be terrible.
Yeah.
So what do you think the biggest problem is in Montgomery County with animal control?
Quite honestly, I think it's our growth. And I don't think it's even just for animal control. I think there's probably a lot of departments that are probably going to struggle with the growth.
Sure.
It's just so quick that it's happening, and it's having the resources obviously are limited, and so stretching those resources even more is going to make it very challenging. So I'm not really
it's
sure
just
that's
gearing up. So
Yeah.
I think the real growth hasn't really happened yet. I think we're just experiencing the first wave, and the next few are going to be a lot larger.
Yeah,
And so I think it's going to cause some problems across the board. Yeah.
I think so, and it does make me nervous. I'm not going to say it doesn't, because we have a hard time as it is, with stray animals and things like that in the community.
Right.
We do only have 9 animal control officers that work the entire county.
9?
9 for
Wow.
the entire county.
For the entire county. That's a
Yep.
big county.
Yes. So
Man, that's not many.
and that's 9 total. So that's not 9 every day. That's 9 total that
Right.
work, and they predominantly work Monday through Friday. There are 2 on each day on the weekends.
Okay.
Just because obviously if we split up 9 over the entire week, we would be even less. And so we have to factor in obviously people being out sick, vacations, things like that too. So that brings our number down. So yeah, I mean, as you can imagine, 9 for an entire county is a lot.
Yeah, that's
And
crazy.
We probably hover around 15,000 calls a year that we get.
Wow, that's a lot too.
Yeah.
So how are you guys funded? I know you're not a taxing authority, so
We are funded by the county.
okay.
So we are basically we're a department of the county. So
Okay.
we're funded through that. We do have a donation fund, so people donate to the shelter. That money does stay with the shelter, and that is how it is tax deductible.
Okay.
Through a special IRS code, it allows that to stay with the shelter. So we do rely on and use those donation funds as well. I mean,
Okay.
those help with, covering costs of medicines, trying to do these transports, things like that
Right.
that may not fit or be applicable in the budget. We use those donation funds for that, and they truly do help us. So that's an important factor for us.
That's great. So when you speak of transport, so I guess you work with other animal shelters in other counties
Yep.
and try to alleviate stress upon the population in your own. Is that how that works? Or-
Yeah, typically it's all across the South. You'll see transports, and a lot of times you're going to see them going north in one direction or another. I would say mostly central part of the United States and then northeast. Some do the Pacific Northwest. It's just it's a little bit further, and so it's a little bit harder to make that trek.
Sure.
But I stay in touch with shelters all across the country. One that we're going to be working with the end of this month, actually. We're doing a flight to Delaware.
Okay.
And Brandywine SPCA has been very helpful to us. Their director has worked with us a bunch, doing different events and things. We had the Houston Mega Adoption event we did at George R. Brown a couple of years ago. They were a big factor of that. Pecco Love, formerly which was Pecco Foundation, they funded that. So it's through all these partnerships and knowing other directors and really having these conversations that we were able to do these transports, secure locations, or even have different events like this. The flight we're doing at the end of this month, going up there, so they're doing their own mega adoption event, which we've done once previously.
Okay.
And so we're taking animals, but we're doing adoptions up there. So we're basically just taking our inventory, if you want to say, we're taking a bunch of dogs up, and we're going to do our own adoptions at their event there.
Okay.
So it's through, going to conferences, meeting these other directors, and building these relationships that we get invited to things like that. And I'm
That's cool.
absolutely thankful for those.
That's the way to go. Yeah.
I can't put into words on how thankful we are for it, because it really does help us. I mean, that's going to be at least 100 dogs that are going to be going up there.
Wow.
Last time we did it, we took 90, and we adopted every single one of them in one weekend. So
Well, that's cool.
our last mega we did 1,450 adoptions. We do plan on doing that again this year, so we are all excited for that. So it'll be all of the Houston area shelters. So Fort Bend, Harris County, Bark, us. We're trying to get as many shelters involved
bunch.
again. Yeah. So we'll be at the George R. Brown again, beginning of September, and there will be more coming out about that. But we're excited to make that happen again this year.
Cool.
So we do ground transports, but recently we've been doing some flights and stuff too, which is nice because it's a little quicker, gets them there a little quicker. We work with Bissell Pet Foundation. They're another one that has helped do those flights.
Okay.
So it's really nice, and it's good to see, and it makes you feel really good to be able to get these pets onto another place to find them a home.
Sure.
And
Yeah, forever home.
Gives us a little bit of relief here for a moment, so that we can kind of breathe for a second, and then
There you go.
get back to the
Cool.
bringing them in.
Well, if I'm a resident and I'm thinking about adopting a pet, what's the procedure? What happens? How does it work?
You can just come on up. So really, you just come on up. You can walk through all the rooms. We're very open there as far as people wanting to come in. If you want to foster, you want to adopt, just come in, talk to us.
Okay.
And kind of talk to the staff too. I mean, a lot of them know these pets, especially some that have been in our care for a little while. And if you just kind of tell them, what you're looking for, or what you kind of maybe think you're looking for, because sometimes you think you're looking for one thing and then you end up looking for something else.
Sure.
And so they're pretty good at, matching people up, pairing them up. We have some great play yards in the back of the facility there, and you can take them out back, play with them, see if it's a good fit, and give it a go. But it's pretty straightforward and simple. We ask you some questions, do a little form, and we always have people take the dog out first just to make sure they think it's going to be a good fit. And
Yeah, that's a good idea. And so what are your hours of operation there?
so 11:30 to 5, and we are closed on Mondays.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it. Yeah, just come in anytime during those hours, and we're trying to do more adoption events in the community as well. We were doing a lot of those pre-COVID, so we're trying to get those kind of ramped up again.
Okay.
We do them at different locations, usually businesses that are wanting to have an adoption event.
Yeah.
And come out, set up,
That's cool.
adopt the pets
I
out,
like it.
and get in the community and be out there. So
Okay.
it's great.
So besides dogs and cats, what else do y'all have?
It's mostly dogs and cats. It's rare that we have other animals. If we do, it's usually part of a animal cruelty investigation, a seizure of some kind.
Like horses and stuff like that?
We don't do horses. So livestock, the sheriff's department has a livestock division.
Okay.
And so they deal with all of the livestock stuff. And so horses, cattle, things like that, they'll do all of those. Ours, like I said, it'll be rare circumstances. We've had a tortoise. It was somebody who got pulled over and they had it in the car. Why they had it in the car, I'm not really sure still. But that ended up at our facility. If there are evictions, sometimes there are animals that are left behind that are not dogs and cats, and so we'll end up with them that way too.
Oh, wow.
So you kind of never know what may come in, but it's usually dogs and cats, but it's not always. And
so what's the weirdest thing somebody's brought in? Got to be something off the top of your head.
We've had all kinds of things, pop up. I mean, we had somebody who thought, there was a kangaroo and it was a wallaby, and so I mean,
really, here in Montgomery County,
yeah, we actually ended up microchipping the wallaby for them, so that was kind of good.
Wow.
We used to have there's actually quite a bit of not quite a bit, let's say quite a bit, but there are more wild animals in the community than I'm used to. In the city of Houston, we've seen the tigers on TV, but as far as actual kept wild animals, there was a few people out there that had different wild animals.
Really?
Big cats. There was a place that had some bears. I don't think they're there anymore now, but there are people that have monkeys in the community.
Yeah, monkeys are dangerous.
Yeah,
big cats are dangerous too.
They are, and monkeys particularly. I mean, they carry a lot of diseases that humans can get. I mean,
and they're really, really strong.
They can be, yeah.
Yeah. And I had a buddy that had a monkey, a chimp, and that thing was tough, and you couldn't count on it because one minute it would be fine, the next minute it would be destroying stuff.
Yeah.
So, it was.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still animals, and so. But it's interesting to see those, and if people are taking care of them the right way, have the right permits and stuff like that, it's interesting to get to go see those. I mean, it's kind of cool to see.
Yeah.
We just obviously want and hope that people do it the right way and house them the right way and have the right permits.
Sure.
But since we are in a county that has a lot of land and people have a lot of area, it's a possibility for people to have those kinds of animals.
Wow.
The state of Texas kind of, the law allows for that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
Yeah, it can be, because you never know what your neighbor may have.
Right. Yeah,
it might not be right next door because you have to have the requirements of space, but yeah, you never know.
Okay.
You never know what's there.
Well, Aaron, I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah.
And I learned stuff.
Yeah.
So, because I didn't know you guys had a fostering program.
We do.
I'm not going to tell my wife about that because next thing you know, we'll have kittens and puppies and everything else.
Especially right now too.
So,
with us, we're doing that flight. The flight is on the 24th, and so we're heavily looking for fosters right now because we want to be able to get those go on the flight out of the shelter because it gives us room to kind of deal with animals that are coming in. But it gives us a chance to kind of get the animal a little bit more comfortable out of the shelter in a home and make sure they're good and healthy before they end up on this flight to Delaware. So. If can you foster like a full-grown dog? Or really? Yeah, especially when we do like these flights and things like that. We just want to get them out of the shelter. We just want to create that space, and then also, like I said, make sure that they're healthy. Because when they're with a foster, I mean, you can see the pet with you all the time.
Right.
You can kind of monitor them and see what their behavior is like. Give us information that's really helpful for us.
Okay.
Because when we go to do the adoption, then we can say, well, the foster noticed this, or the foster did not notice this. So it kind of gives the people a little bit of an idea about the pet's, personality, how they behave, things like that, and then just making sure that they're healthy also before they end up on the flight.
Man, I like that idea.
So,
that's great.
And it gives you kind of a deadline too. So flight's only a couple of weeks away, so we can say, hey, you only need to foster for a couple of weeks.
I wonder how many fosters actually decide to keep those animals.
So that is the one issue that we have to make very clear, unfortunately. So on the flight ones, we always have to make clear that these are ones you're not going to be able to keep. So if you think you're going to end up wanting to keep this, then don't take this one. Just because, we have to prepare for those. And it takes a lot of work to put those flights together. We have to work with the groups up there, what they're willing and able to take in and accept in case we aren't able to get them adopted. and then getting all the paperwork together. I mean, we still have to follow all the regulations as far as making sure we have their vaccination status up to date, their prevention's up to date, making sure they're healthy. We have to make sure we do the health certificate, which is done by our veterinarians, who has to be accredited by the USDA.
Okay.
And so they do a health certificate that is through the USDA, basically. And then from there, they're able to send on the flight. But getting all of that done in that time frame is a lot. And when you're sending 100, it's a lot to keep up with. So
Sure it is.
that's why we say up front, can't keep this one.
Yeah, I bet that's
But there's
gotta be
many
tough.
others. There's many others back here.
Yeah.
So, but some people like that because then it kind of gives them that. They know there's kind of an ending period, and then they
Sure.
also know that I'm not going to have really any pressure to keep this one either.
Yeah.
So I know
kinda
it's going
cool.
somewhere else, and I know it's only for 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
it's great. I mean,
Yeah, that is kind of cool.
but the information that we get from the fosters is amazing. I mean,
Oh, I
we
bet.
get pictures and we get all kinds of personality information, behavior
Mm-hmm.
information
That just helps with an adoption
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it really paints a
absolutely.
picture of that pet for us.
Okay.
So it's awesome.
Now we're in the middle. Well, we're not in the middle of summer, but I think summer's officially started, and it's really, really hot.
It is.
And so I do have some animals that live outside. I've got a couple of cats. So, and I've always been curious as to how I would know if they're in heat distress or whatever. So, what kind of look for in something like that? And I mean, we keep bowls of water pretty much all over
Sure.
the property that I dump every day and keep fresh every day. So,
Yeah.
other than that, is there anything I can look for to know that there's a problem is starting with a certain animal?
Sure. Cats are probably pretty good at keeping themselves. Usually they'll find a place to have shade or things like that. But obviously in a cat, if you see open mouth panting or something like that, that's going to be a pretty big telltale sign that there's something wrong.
Okay.
Cats aren't panters. So if you
Right.
see that, then there's a problem. They're not sweating. Dogs and cats don't sweat.
Right.
So they're always trying to pant off that heat. They're trying to breathe it off, and that's how
Okay.
they're trying to bring their temperature down. Dogs really need to have shelter on these days that we have, the heat warnings and things like that. They should really be brought inside.
Yeah.
It's just too dangerous, and we've seen cases where it's proved to be dangerous.
Yeah.
And
Even in the shade, it's
even
bad.
in the shade.
Yeah, it can
I mean,
be.
even in the shade.
Yeah.
I always tell people too. I mean, if you just want to get a feel for it, go hang out in your grass wherever your dog is. Lay out in the shade
Yeah.
where you think it's cool, and
Yeah.
on those hot days that it's that hot, it's not as cool as you think it is.
Yeah.
And I encourage people too, if they're outside, put a kiddie pool out there and stuff like that too. If your dog likes to get in the water, it's a great way for them to get into it and cool down.
Okay.
Any of those kinds of things.
Yeah,
but,
and they're cheap.
Yeah,
Kiddie pools
I
don't
mean,
cost hardly anything.
and especially if your dogs
So, yeah.
like it, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of dogs in the heat. They love those. I mean, we have them at the shelter all the time. They go out and play. They're, jump in the water. Some just like to lay in the water. So they enjoy it too. And
Okay.
any of those creative ways you can keep them cool, it's definitely very, very important. But if we have those heat warnings and stuff like that, I mean, me personally, mine are inside. They have a dog
Yeah.
door, so they go in and out all the time. But different people will have different ways of keeping their pets, and we just try to enforce what laws we have on the books for that. A new one that did come out is that you can't chain your dog anymore.
Thank God, that was
They
a
can
good
be
law.
tethered still. They can't be chained. So you can still tether it, but
Okay.
there are a little more restrictions as far as what you have to have. You have to have potable water, to have shelter, has to not be a chain, things like that have to be there provided for.
Right,
the
but
pet.
it's a pet, not a prisoner. I
I agree.
I have real strong
I
opinions about tying up a dog. I really
I agree.
do.
And people have other opinions, and I try to keep my own opinions slightly at bay a little bit, just because we have to enforce what the law actually is,
Yeah.
and not our feelings.
Not me, I'll say it. It's
yeah.
a pet, not a prisoner.
And it is, and it's
So,
like I said, mine have a dog door. They go in and
Yeah,
out as they
mine
want,
too.
because mine like to go out. They'll lay in the sun for a while, or they get right by the fence where it kind of reflects down. And they get hot, and then they come in, and then they lay inside for a while. But I just, if you especially if you're not going to be around too, because that's another problem where we've seen problems occur is that they have them outside, they're not around, something happens,
Mhm.
and then,
Right.
now there's a real bad emergency, and you're not there.
Right.
And it's going to create a problem for you.
Tangled up in their chain or tether.
It's going to create a problem for you.
Yeah, it's just terrible.
It's going to create a cruel situation, and us and the constables are going to be knocking at your door.
Cool.
And we do have the cruelty team now. I don't know if you had seen that last year,
No.
but Precinct 2 constables have 2 constables assigned for animal cruelty, and so they deal with any animal issues as far as animal cruelty or other things too. But if it as an animal related as far as sort of crime, then
it's too bad that's needed, but I'm glad it's there, you know.
Yeah, we were kind of missing that link, and it's not to put any other law enforcement agencies off, but it's kind of like some of these other specialized things, like the child crimes and things like that. It's a specialized thing that not all deputies have that training for. It's not something that they do or go into great depth in the academy on animal cruelty.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a lot of experience in kind of working these cases to really get good at them. And having that specialty makes it much more effective. They're able to make sure that they're getting all the documentation and the evidence and things that they need to prosecute those cases of animal cruelty. So it's nice to be able to call on them, and then if we ever have any issues, even just with other stuff, they're always there to be able to help us.
That's great.
So it's been great to have them and have that support. But we kind of have that missing link in there now, because it was just kind of us, and then we have the DA's office, and there's different departments in between. So now we can everybody kind of knows what the process is, and we have that flow through and make sure cases make it all the way up to the DA's office and go from there.
All right, one final thing. So we're going to be doing a hurricane preparedness class, and I know a lot of people don't consider their animals when they're making preparations. So what's the best thing to do as far as thinking forward about how to handle your pets during a storm and after a storm, and and what should you have as far as amount of water, if there's a specified amount or whatever? Because I know, like, for humans, it's 1 gallon of drinkable water per person per day.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm not sure if there actually is a set amount for that, but FEMA does have a couple of guides out there for pets specifically. But obviously, same thing almost for you. Food, water, crates, things like that, leash, identification, making sure I encourage everybody to make sure their pets have microchips, but making sure their microchip information is up to date. Having all those things, but then also thinking, if you have to leave your home, what all do you need? Making sure you have that ready and prepared, because you don't want to be caught in the situation where you're now frantically trying to leave in some sort of situation, but you have nothing ready for your pet. And so then it's just grab your pet, but then now you're somewhere else with just you and your pet. Right. And then what? And so we saw actually quite a bit of that during Harvey. People showing up with just nothing. But there were some people that they did show up with crates and stuff, so they were prepared. It was nice to see, but it helps you keep your pet contained, because they're going to be frightened just as everybody
probably
else.
More so because
they don't know what's
communication
going on. Yeah. So just making sure you have all that stuff. But if they're on medications and things like that, it's important to make sure you have enough and that those are filled, especially if there's storms coming. But those are the biggest things. For us, it was always identification, because linking pets back up to their owners after a storm is a big task.
There's a lot of misplaced pets after a storm. I know that for sure. They get scared. They try to run away from it.
During Harvey, we had over 1,000 pets that came through the fairgrounds.
Wow.
And it was a lot, and they were coming in quick by the busload. And so just making sure, like I said, having those supplies and even documentation too. If you have records, that is very much helpful. I always, with my records, even for myself and for my pets, I have them on my iCloud. They're in my phone, they're on my iPad, they're on, I can get to it anyway. And then if I have to, go to a shelter or something like that where I can take my pet, then at least then I can pull it up on my phone. Here's my records, and have that information. It's really helpful for us. And plus, should there be an incident, if it happens to bite somebody during all of the chaos that's going on, then we know if they're vaccinated or not, and things like that. It's just very helpful information.
Okay, great. So if anybody wants to learn anything more or make a donation or become a foster parent or any of that, what website would they go to?
So mcaspets.org.
Okay.
And it has all of the information for volunteering, fostering, donating. I know our foster coordinator is really wanting people to reach out and foster right now. So she said, make sure you do a shout out for fostering. So this is her shout out. Yeah. Suzanne is great. She wants to get
And I
animals
think
out of
it's
the
been
shelter.
the crux of the show, Suzanne. So
yep.
there you go.
Suzanne was the one that got me here. So, but then we have Catherine. She's our rescue coordinator.
Okay.
And then currently right now we're actually looking for a volunteer coordinator. So if anybody's looking for a job and wants to be a volunteer coordinator, they can go to the county website and apply.
Great.
We are looking for someone to fill that spot.
Okay. And you're also looking for a vet.
We're looking for a vet, looking for ACTs, looking for veterinary technicians.
Okay.
I think we still have one ACO position, and then we have the volunteer coordinator position.
Okay.
So we have many positions open right now.
Fantastic. Well, man, I appreciate your time on a Friday.
Yeah, no problem.
So, and I'm
Thanks for
glad
having
you
me.
made it through the traffic.
Yeah.
And there were no incidents or
Yeah.
anything. Well, guys, there you have it. The Animal Services has always done a great job here in Montgomery County. They're continuing to do a great job. But the thing is, we got to support them, You need to go over there and adopt a pet. If you don't have a pet in your life, you're missing something. So get a pet, whether it's a cat, dog, chicken, goose, whatever. Get something. It only enhances your life and enhances your ability to deal with others too. So it's good to come home after a rough day and be able to pet your pet and hang out with them and not hear anything negative, because you're never going to hear that out of an animal, that's for sure. So, I recommend that. Take care of the animals that you have. Also take his advice on hurricane preparedness. You got to think ahead and think about your pets as well. So it's documentation. Get them in a small kennel or something that you can house them in if you got to move, and leashes and things like that. And then all of our animals have chips. It's a good idea. It's an easy process to go through. Any veterinarian can do it. So do that as well.
You can come up to the shelter too. We have a wellness clinic. So we have a low-cost wellness clinic for the public as well.
Wow, I didn't know
they
that.
can come up there.
See?
I would be surprised if you find a microchip cheaper than what we are. A lot of times we are doing those for free, so just reach out to us because we want as many pets microchipped as we can. All of our animal control officers have microchip scanners, so if they find a pet and it's chipped and they can take it back to you, we would rather take it back to you than take it to the shelter.
It's the way to go.
We want to save the animals' lives, but we can't do it without our community, so we just need that support.
Well, there you go. So support your local animal shelter. It's a big deal. It's important. And it's just part of what we're supposed to do as an effective society. So I'm Hank Batt. This is Hank's Think Tank, and we're out.